That new Zoom like announcement, it just bothers me every time. I don't know why they have to do that. But anyway, sorry. Hey, Sarah. Oh, I don't think she heard me. Sarah, can you hear me?
I can, but my camera's
Oh,
broken again.
so sorry, Sarah. It's referring to Sarah Sachs because you joined.
I
I think
know.
you're
I'm
you're
being,
messing with me. You're Sarah
It's the curse
Withy.
of the Sarahs,
Yeah.
but at least you spell it right.
right?
Welcome, Sarah. And
Any other way is
Corey,
wrong.
awesome. We did just finish quick introductions, but since you all are here so close, go ahead, Sarah, and introduce yourself. You've got some
Which,
exciting news too, so
which
share that.
Sarah? Is it me?
Sarah Sachs, yeah, Sarah Withy has already introduced herself, so that's done for.
Yeah. I'm Sarah Sachs, currently a tech lead at Kroger, but we'll be rolling off in about a week and a half for a developer job at a company called Ad Hoc. Front end development is my specialty, and I'm a pretty cool person. I don't know what else to say, so yeah, that's me.
I think that says it all, right?
It does.
Yeah. Corey.
Oh, I'll introduce myself. But first, Sarah, I didn't know you were leaving. I'm really happy for you because that's the important thing, but I'm also sad you'll not be my coworker anymore. That said, I'm Corey. I am Michael's coworker. I'm recently engaged, which is my big news, and I'm also a developer at Kroger. So all of those are good things, except that Sarah won't be in my organization anymore, but that's okay. Hi, everybody. Oh, I'm also gonna go away and get coffee, and I'll be right back.
Well, okay, we'll get that coffee. All right, I am sending a link super quick here. 1 second. Cool. Okay, so like I was saying, networking and just making connections. I know networking sounds terrible, right? Like I feel like I talk to so many people and they're like, networking. That's like just this side of pure evil, right? And it's this corporate thing that you have to do, and it's just the worst. And I've discovered that I don't feel that way about it at all, but that's actually anyway. So I would love to know if you all have any questions, what you would like to discuss. Clearly, you're here for a reason, or maybe you just happened to join TN Tech and didn't know we were talking about networking today. So bring it out there if you have something to share. I always do like to open it up.
Not surprising that I have something to say, but I have thoughts on the stigma against networking.
I'd love to hear them.
I apply this like a lot of things to how it used to be when I would do music, and music communities often have people trying to be, just like any other thing. There's popular folks, and then there's people that are their bands are a little bit more popular and they want to go be friends with those people, and it feels very networky. And I donned the mentality that instead of saying networking in my head, I call it just expanding my personal community. Because I found that when I tried to be friends with musicians that were really cool, but I had nothing in common with, it was just lame. I felt embarrassed at the end of the day. And then I just went out and tried to find friends for the sake of having friends that happened to also be musicians. And all of a sudden my network grew. And like a lot of things in life, don't try to what's the word? Don't try to capitalize on a situation as much as just let it happen organically. So if there's a stigma and you don't like the word networking, I'd say call it growing your personal community, and it's ultimately the same thing. That's my thought.
I endorse this comment. I tell you what, we've got the raise hand thing. If you feel like you struggle with expanding your personal network, you want to raise your hand, or you don't have to, but I'm curious if people feel that way, or if they feel like, or you can just chime in, whatever you feel like doing, or is it easy and you just don't do it? So Mark has trouble. Mark just joined. Welcome, Mark. I kind of Mark's a friend of mine, and hi, Mark.
Hello,
Do you want to
everybody.
introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I am Mark. I am a software engineer in Cincinnati, and I am actually about to transition to full-time open source maintainer. So, been talking just today, about networking and finding people with similar interests and things like that. So, this is like a perfect dovetail. It has been an interesting path networking with people. I have met a lot of people through open source various communities that I've been involved in. But there's always just kind of this hang up of like making it official, I guess, like I know you, I talk to you, but like having a professional relationship together where we're intentionally building each other up to do something together, it's kind of a hang up around that. And I've always found that a little difficult, even though when I actually get into it and just do it, it's really not a big deal. So it's just like that little mental wall to climb, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm gonna speak now. So what
Great.
that reminded me of, when you said, you were saying something about like, and are maybe like friends with people, and then what is it that takes, it's awkward to like take things to the next level, I guess. And it reminded me of a study that I know about, that I just looked up the name of. It's the strength of weak ties. And it's basically says that like you're way more likely to get a job if you like kind of know a bunch of people, because the way I had it explained to me is that like if you ask a friend of a friend to like vouch for you for a job, maybe they work at a company you're applying for, it's way more uncomfortable for them to tell you no as a not quite stranger than it is for them to like tell you no if you're like close friends. And it's like that principle expanded because you're like second degree network of friends. I don't mean second, like not good friends. I mean like the friends of your friends is a wider net because of like exponents and stuff. So I'm done. That's just a thought I had.
No, it's super. That's great stuff. I have heard of that study before. Oh, did you drop it in there? Thank you. Because maths, exactly.
I don't think you
Maths
can
are
read it. I
very
think it's
important.
like paywalled, but that's the paper.
Oftentimes you can find there's deliberate ways around the paywall a lot of times.
I'm sure that there is.
Or the other most interesting trick that I've heard is that if you message the author, they love to send you their articles.
I too have heard that.
So like they're not prevented from doing that. All you have to do is just send them an email and they're like, here it is. So,
And apparently a lot of the sites
Yeah.
don't pay them any of the money from the paywall.
exactly. Right. So they have no incentive essentially to not send you the article. Other people have thoughts. Maybe even we can start getting into things that have worked for you when you're trying to expand your network, or we can even bring personal brand in just a little bit here. I think that's a part of it.
Well, as someone who has spent near a decade in a completely unrelated industry, I have definitely had to spend more time than I ever imagined thinking about personal brand and networking and trying to shift everyone I know from food manufacturing to tech, which is difficult in some ways, but I've managed to collect enough close acquaintances along the way
and that's led me to things like this.
Mhm.
I've discovered I am connected with a lot of Kroger developers.
Everyone's
fantastic.
connected to a lot of Kroger developers.
Yeah, it's like unavoidable.
Kind
Well,
of.
and this is just a good network of people because like I think I've seen most of you in other groups or other events that I've done. Like I recall Sierra from Women Who Code thing because I know Leanne and I attended something she did. So it was like it's good to see a lot of you in a lot of different places.
Sarah, I saw you raised your hand. Sarah Sachs.
Yeah, it kind of plays on what Paul was saying. I think it's just a matter of like finding your tribe in a way. Because when I started out, I actually went to school for art history, and I got the same sort of mantra kind of hammered into your head about the importance of networking. But I think the art history circles, they're very different from the tech circles. And so the conversation you have, and I think I guess the level of, networking expectations and stuff, just finding those sort of commonalities to chat about can be, I think, difficult if you're not in with a group that kind of aligns with your kind of social comfort level, I guess. And there's a lot of nerds in tech, so I feel like I can, network a little more freely in technical meetups than, in art history meetups. So that's another positive.
That's a very interesting insight. Thank you. Did I see Ajay? You want to have something to say there?
Yeah. So I joined these calls just for let's say networking and just to know people. I let's say moved to Cincinnati a couple of years back, and I was in let's say Seattle. So let's say Seattle has a lot of tech let's say crowd. So there are like too many meetups that happens, and it's a pretty good. But when I moved to Cincinnati, it was like okay, but that's what I joined, and I met let's say Michael through this software craftsmanship. I also met Mark Wutzowitz. He does DDD Cincinnati, and Mark. I'm not sure his last name. Mark Wenbei.
Windholtz,
Mark
I think.
Wenbei. I'm sorry.
Okay. I think it's Mark Windholtz, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, let's say Mark Windows, who does Cincinnati, and I also get the chance to interact with Mark Winby. He's probably one of the leader at let's say Calibrity.
Okay.
Right, so let's say got to know these people just because of these let's say meetups, and got to interact with them just because I went to that meetup and let's say got to present something. Couple of days, weeks back, actually, there was let's say nice session on let's say Clubhouse about the value of MBA, and you should do MBA for an engineering let's say career. And the biggest factor people talk about is MBA helps to create your network.
Interesting.
So otherwise that people say that there is no benefit of doing an MBA unless until you are doing from top 10 or top 5 colleges. Gotcha. So building your network was the key thing for MBA so that you get access to all other minds and you can do that. But again, to build your network, you also need to have something that you can give back to that network. You can be let's say good party organizer, right? That could be let's say good reason to build a network. You can be a good sending let's say notes for books, but you also have to something to give back to that network and need to help that network to build that network, because just being an observer won't help you.
Yeah, people remember when you contribute back. It makes a big difference. Sarah, with you, raise your hand.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking about how I think when we talk about like networking, it's it's like I have to go to the post office to mail a stamp. It's like I have to go to this thing to network. And I think it's always 500 times more daunting when you think about going into a crowded room and like I have to meet these people. But I think it's a little less daunting when you happen to be up at a meetup anyway, and you just like, hey, that group of people looks interesting to talk to when you go and you meet somebody out of that, you know, that it's still networking both ways, but it's less intense when you think about doing it as sort of a add-on to another activity as opposed to, you know,
You
walking
almost
into a room with
sneak it in
500
there,
people.
like, you know, oh, you didn't expect this, but hey, you can meet some people tonight. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I've definitely had a lot of, like I said, I've had a lot of different experiences with networking, and I think a lot of the things that you all have mentioned are really important. One of a few things that I like to focus on is you're in it for the long game. So it's not about what can I get out of this interaction today. And that doesn't mean that you never ask for anything, because in fact, asking for something occasionally or is actually a way to build that relationship. But you want to be careful with that, because if it comes to a point where, you know, it's more one-sided, you always kind of have to watch the dynamic of that relationship and how is this playing out. So, for example, you know, the most basic is if you're in a conversation, you suddenly discover that you're doing 95% of the talking, there might be an issue there. You might just want to take a look at that and be like, oh, maybe I need to back off here for a minute. Or, you know, just it's all about I don't know, that any thoughts on that so far? Or I guess it's fairly non-controversial. I will say one of the something that I think changed my life in a big way that I only realized in the past couple of years was a book that I read back in high school. And I've actually posted about this on LinkedIn a while back. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I think many people have heard of it. I remember when I first read it, I almost felt guilty about it. It felt like a weird thing, like winning friends. That's weird. Influencing people, huh? That's isn't that like voodoo stuff?
Like you have an agenda.
And what? Yeah, there's an agenda there, and it's so interesting because the book is not that at all. It is so much about what you can contribute to relationships, how to cultivate relationships, and really be a conversationalist, be someone that people want to interact with. And I just can't recommend that book enough for a lot of reasons. I started, like I said, I started writing on LinkedIn about it, but I think I should probably write a series of blog posts. We'll see when that actually gets done. But just in the different ways that it's affected my life, and actually the way that I've remembered stories from it over 2 decades, basically. Oh, yeah. No, not quite 2 decades, like a decade and a half. We'll just say that. No, almost 2 decades now. I'm older than I thought. Hold on just a moment here. So 2 decades, yeah. But I find it amazing the way it stuck with me for that long.
I will
your blog
echo.
post can go with my blog post. I'm titling what was I thinking? Like networking 101 or how do I people, and talk about like how do I meet so many people at conferences and stuff while I'm still like naturally a shy person. I just seem outgoing and energetic to everybody I meet. That's just I've learned a few tricks along the way, I feel like.
That's fantastic.
How do I people? I love that title.
That is fantastic, yes.
See, I think peopling is easier in a social setting than when you enter it thinking of networking. In a social setting, I find an extrovert and I latch onto them and I let them do the extroverting for me. And then I just kind of soak up the connection. But that doesn't seem to work in a professional environment the same.
There's ways to leverage that. I mean, I think there's still some value there. It's I think something you touched on there is almost the value of having a sponsor. You know, I've heard there's mentors and then there's sponsors. And so a mentor is someone who gives you advice, and a sponsor is someone who will actually like go out there and advocate for you, who will push you forward and at the same time equip and kind of plow the ground, make it fertile for you to go do that thing. So
I do wonder.
I heard that recently and I really liked it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I wonder if like there is a kind of area to kind of grow that like within the local community. That's sort of a belief of, as people that are comfortable with networking, being like advocates for complete strangers and knowing that there's going to be, some people that are either new to the community or curious about the community. Just kind of recognizing that and, being that sort of a sponsor or ambassador when you see new folks, and just recognizing it right off the bat.
That's a great call out, Sarah. I'll say I actually had that opportunity last night with the happy hour I went to, where I was talking to another developer, and he said, I don't. This isn't really my thing. It's not something that I do a lot of, and we talked for 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm like, well, let's go meet these people over here. And he's like, all right, let's do it. So it's almost, taking people along and saying, hey, I'll show you, just follow me in a way. Maybe that's a weird way to say it, but I don't know. I find that helpful to people on many occasions.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I know that like in the past, in the before times when we were meeting in person and stuff, there were a few meetups where it would be, grabbing students that were in my GDI classes or whatever, and, kind of bringing them along, because I think for some communities, like especially maybe women in the field, it can be kind of intimidating to go to like a meetup that is like all dudes. And so having that sort of insight and being like, okay, like you're not alone here. Like it's not scary. Like let's I'll help break the ice for you. I think that is a super rewarding position to be in, because those sorts of sponsors do have the potential to, I think, change perceptions and break down barriers that might exist that aren't just technical aptitude or just like those sorts of walls you put up. It's also like a fear that could possibly exist.
Thank you, Sarah. Does anybody have thoughts about challenges they have specific difficulties? I mean, I know a lot of people struggle with, just general social anxiety, which, that is not uncommon. And it takes a lot of work to alleviate some of those things. And I'm not saying it's always possible to do that, but it's worth it a lot is that's what I'm trying to say. Go ahead.
I think a challenge, I think that a lot of people can have in the tech community is to sum it up shortly, feeling stupid when asking a question and getting an answer. There's such a high probability of getting an esoteric answer. I've never used that word so much as I have in the last year of my life since I've started developing. And in so many meetups, if I asked a question and been told, well, that's not it at all, you just connect this to this reference data point, throwing so much jargon at me, and I just have to sit there and smile and feel like a complete idiot as 20 people stare and I get put in my place. I feel like that's happened a lot. And I have to think of it from another person's perspective, that they're probably not trying to place me, they're trying to teach me, or at least respect me with an answer. But you asked about challenges. That, I think that's been one of my biggest challenges, frequently feeling humbled in front of a whole bunch of other people simply for asking a question.
I think that's a great call out. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I would just.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that Sarah first?
Oh yeah, I can go. Yeah, I hate that. I honestly, like, I've been in the industry for 10 years, and every time I go to a situation where I ask a question and I hear the word just, like, oh, it's just this thing. It's like, stop that. Like, strike that word from your vocabulary, because it's not necessarily going to be, you know, in your mind, it's just connecting A to B, but I'm asking the question because I don't know. And please, you know, tone it down a bit.
Paul, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add, on top of feeling stupid, like, I personally, and I don't know if it's a thing with other bootcamp people, sometimes I feel just like a nuisance. Like, there's one guy I've known for years, and I'm like, always like, when I see him, we talk about non-tech stuff, but then tech stuff comes up just because, like, I'm trying to soak up as much as I can. But, like, I've been dabbling and partially invested in this for years. So it's like, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this now. And I'm like, wow, I must sound like the biggest pain, because I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this someday. And he's literally known me for years, and I've been saying that exact same thing for years. And I'm like, well, maybe I should just tone it down now.
I will say, I think we do have work to do as a community, and you know, I've seen this called out on various occasions, and it's true. I think that we are not unique in that, but that does not alleviate the responsibility that we have to make our spaces welcoming. And there are, you know, you say you feel like a nuisance, Paul, and I as a general, I would say, you know, it's possible for, like, yes, I've been in a scenario where people but I don't find it typically from newbies. I typically find it from people who know their stuff, and they're just driving this line of reasoning that is just like, why are we talking about this right now? This is not the topic of discussion, and you are forcing it in this direction, you know, because it's just your axe to grind or something. So there is definitely a self-awareness about that in general, that people need to have, but I find it is less from people who don't know stuff, and more from people who want to show off, essentially. I think I guess we've got a little off path here, but anybody have a comment they had to bring it back, or anything? Or anything they've been pondering while we're talking?
I can comment to bring it back, but I feel like I'm doing most of the talking today. So clearly I'm getting more comfortable with you guys, because the first couple sessions I didn't talk at all. But like, I think COVID and some of the forced to virtual has actually helped, because like, I don't think I would have attended a Tea and Tech if it were an in-person thing, because I've a while back, I had attended a couple tech meetups in person, and I felt so out of depth. Whereas here, like the first couple sessions, I just sat here and was quiet, and like, you guys were cool with that. You guys were welcoming. And I don't think that people in person weren't welcoming. It was just it's that different in-person feeling. So I think this kind of helps as a stepping stone to like, I'd totally be down to meet any of you in person now, but it's that in between. So it might be a benefit of this whole pandemic thing.
Absolutely. And, you know, that it reminds us that it's important to structure our events in such a way that we're, you know, like I said, creating a welcoming atmosphere for people at a variety of levels. And, you know, there is a place for the expert level meetup where for discussing deep things, for delving into complex topics. And, you know, there would be a lot of those that I would go to and feel completely out of my depth because I've never worked in them. But we need to make sure that we are creating those spaces for people at kind of all levels. I know, for example, so I want to call out Randy. I super excited. Randy was it last night, two nights ago, Randy, your first. So Randy has created his own meetup, which I think is awesome. You want to talk about that for a minute, Randy?
Be happy to. So it is called React Fundamentals, and it kind of spawns from the feeling of getting all those complex answers so frequently. And so I wanted to, a lot of other new devs in the area. I've got a big spot in my mind for helping out new devs because I'm one of them as well, and we can all help each other out. Simply stated, it's a meetup for other people in the area who want to talk about React and React adjacent things. I wanted to just be fun, casual conversation where we can talk about the most rudimentary, basic concepts and not feel like there will be any judgment. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Turns out to be a lot of fun. Anyone can join, even if it's not React. I think there's a good chance that it's going to grow a little bit broader than React as it touches so many other technologies, and maybe the scope shouldn't be so limited, but that's just a little bit of the orientation right now.
Do you want to drop a link to that, Randy?
I'd be happy to, and I'll tell you this right now. I'm considering it kind of in beta phase right now because I'm new to hosting meetups. So I'm openly saying anyone who's good at this, I will gladly heed your advice, because I didn't even consider how to do like a reoccurring event in Zoom. So I'm still a little bit new there. Let me find a link before this is all over. I'll post a group link in LinkedIn. And thank you very much for asking me to share about that.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for sharing, Randy. I have a question for, you know, so if you, maybe I asked this before, I'm trying to think it through if I phrase, maybe it's phrased differently. If you struggle with talking to people or you know, making new connections, what is it, are there any specific concrete things that you can think of that would make certain situations more inviting or less intimidating? Are there things that I can do with Tea and Tech, for example, to make it easy or less intimidating to be a part of this? I don't know if people feel intimidated. Obviously, you all are here, so you know, clearly you pushed through that if you had it, but are there things that perhaps could be done better?
Sort of tangentially related. I know in thinking through 2 conferences I've been involved in last year and this year, you know, we thought a lot about how do you take that in-person experience and make it work better virtually. Because I think there's still that thought that, oh, well, you just do it on Zoom and it's the same thing. And it's really not. You can't connect really in the same way because at a
No.
meetup, like we'd all be listening to a speaker, but then kind of disperse into smaller crowds. And
Yes.
on Zoom, you're stuck in the same room, and there are people that are going to be quiet the whole time, and people that are going to dominate the conversations. And that was one of the reasons I ended up suggesting, maybe do introductions at the beginning to kind of maybe break the ice a little bit. But
thank you for that, Sarah.
yeah, but I think you kind of have to rethink for virtual things. If you want people to do connections, it's usually not going to be when there's 15 people in a big group. There's breakout rooms, there's things like that. You could sort them by topic or sort them completely random and be just like, here's the topic, go, or I don't know. There's different ways of doing it, but we found there was a lot of success in just in both of them, just setting up like lots of different various spaces, and then people just kind of broke apart how they wanted to and kind of jumped around different Zoom rooms as they felt appropriate. There was one where we had a virtual space called Skittish, which is your little animal avatar, and you just walk around the big thing, and as you get closer to people, you can hear their conversations. And
Interesting.
you can walk away and you don't hear them anymore. And so that was kind of interesting to experiment with, and sort of replicating the real world without having to necessarily have the pressure of being forced to be in a group together.
Yeah. So Randy, thank you, Sarah. By the way, that's good stuff there. I want to come back to that. Outlook will muck up your links a bit. There you go. That's a little better. So sorry. Oh yes. So we have, for example, with software craftsmanship, which, yeah, it's obviously completely safe. With software craftsmanship, we've tried to maintain some of the social aspect to it, and I definitely agree we have not succeeded in the same way that a lot of their in-person meetups have. And I've wanted to experiment with breakout rooms. We just haven't ever found the right way to do it. But I do like the idea of like randomly assigning people to breakout rooms. Like, hey, guess what? There's 15 people, there's 25 people. We're going to split you all into 5 breakout rooms and see what happens. So, because there is that certain, that happy medium of group size where you can actually make those connections.
FIU is actually this Dunbar numbers. Have you heard those numbers? Dunbar numbers. FIU
Yes,
50,
I have heard that.
50, 150, 500.
Yes. And that's like, you cross those numbers in the size of a group and certain things change. Is that right, Ajay? I may have to read a little bit more about that. So.
What was the term?
I believe it was Dunbar numbers. Is that correct, Ajay?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I think it was, if I can jump off of that, based on the idea that a scientist noted that in primates, when cranial size increased, so did the number of close, intimate connections they had in their community, and found that the humans cranial size comes to about 150 on average. And that's not to say that you can't know more than 150 people, but your intimacy will decrease beyond that number. You could also argue that you could have less and very close intimate relationships. But this was created before social networks were a thing. And I feel like the paradigm now has to compensate for that. And it's interesting. I think the lesson might be, choose your friends wisely.
I think one of the most common that I hear is you are the average of your 5 closest friends.
Wow.
Is that an interesting thing to ponder, Randy? You like that one
You
clearly
just-
took you aback.
You just broke my brain. Loved it.
Yeah, I heard, excuse me, there was a saying I read somewhere that something like, before you decide that you're depressed, make sure you haven't just surrounded yourself with assholes. Where it's like, you know, if the 5 closest people to you just treat you like crap, you're probably going to feel like crap, or, you know, if they're just not good people. So
Yeah. Do any of you have questions for me? You know, I'm probably shared a lot, but I just want to make sure that I'm answering any questions you might have.
I have a question. I don't know. It's probably an obvious thing.
Okay.
So on LinkedIn, okay, so it's
Yep.
like the networking person's
Mhm.
social media or whatever.
Mhm.
So on LinkedIn, you have requests that come in from like recruiters, consultancies, et cetera, et cetera. Do you accept them or do you decline them because you literally don't know the people? Is the point to grow your network as wide as possible and be like the black hole of networking, or is it to actually form connections that you know?
I'll answer that one for me, and then others can answer as well. I mean, and I think it depends on what you're trying to accomplish, perhaps. But I used to have a pattern of, you know, blanket decline if I have not met you in some way. And that has, I think, that has become more and less flexible at various stages. So, for example, for boot camp students, I'll almost always accept a connection request. For, you know, something like for a recruiter, I typically won't unless I've met them or I have some other reason specifically to connect with them. And so and then, or if somebody includes so here's the thing, if somebody includes a message about why they care specifically to connect with me, sure, I'll accept that. You know, if I am providing a very specific value, but if I get expanding my network, how does that make me feel? I'm just a number to you. And so why would I accept that request? I don't know. I've also wavered between clicking and not clicking the I don't know this person link, which I know is like death in a way. Apparently, if you get 5 of those, LinkedIn blocks you from sending friend requests. So
I hadn't heard that. Maybe I should use that more.
That
Huh?
every recruiter doesn't get blocked. I've never used that, but 5? That's
See,
a
that's the
pretty
thing
low
is-
threshold.
So that's the thing, is almost nobody does it, right? So you know, not many people will go the extra step of clicking I don't know this person.
Wow.
So yeah.
I do preach this a lot, and it is when you mentioned adding a note to the LinkedIn request, I say you always do it, and it really
Always.
helps the other person make a human connection with you.
Always.
And I could almost do a whole talk on the benefits of this, because another way around is I always do that, and it has happened to me where 6 months later someone does something and you sometimes forget a connection. And I go into the chat and think, oh, I don't think I know this person. I go into the chat and remember that I had written, hi, my name is Randy. I'm connecting you for this. And it helped me remember how I knew this person and why they were important to me in the first place. And it actually ended up being almost like a little a Rolodex of why I have my connections, and every single chat with every person I know, I try to have that.
A note as well about whether to accept, deciding whether to accept. You can message anyone who sends you a connection request. you actually have to dig just a little to get there. You have to like open up all your invites, and then there's a little message button, but you can message them. And I actually, in certain cases, will, sometimes it was blanket, but I would message them and say, hey, what got you interested in connecting? And, half the time they don't even respond. And that's like, okay, clearly I didn't want to accept that connection request in the first place. So
as a note, if you're adding someone as a connection, because I literally just added Michael, unless you do it a certain way, apparently it doesn't prompt you to send a message. Like it
on
just sent
mobile.
you the connection. No, I'm on desktop.
Oh, okay. So usually when I'm on desktop and I click connect, it almost always asks me, do you want to add a note? Now that I don't know if that's a feature flag or not, they could be testing something with that perhaps. But yes, on mobile, you have to go into the hamburger menu and then, it's like customize invitation or something along those lines. So
Yeah, I feel like it normally prompts me, but for some reason with you, it did not. I wonder if because there's enough connections and I'm in TN Tech
perhaps.
or something like that.
Oh, and it depends on where you're doing it from. So if you're on their, I'm sorry, we've gotten really deep into this LinkedIn thing and I'm probably boring everyone at this point. But if you're on their profile, it'll ask you if you're on the listing page or the like, hey, connect all these people, which I honestly think that LinkedIn is like deliberately getting people to connect to people they don't actually know. Anyway, we've gone down. Is there anybody else who wants to talk about their LinkedIn strategy or anything like that? Suruchi, go ahead.
Hey, Michael, I don't have thoughts on LinkedIn strategy, but as we are talking about network team piece, I think networking should not be, or any connection should not be based on give and take. It should be based, it could be based on your common interests. For example, if 10 people join something which they like in common, but they are not giving anything to each other. They are just joining somewhere together, which they, whatever they love. So, and it should be judgmentless. I mean, when we are gathering together, for example, right now we are together, like 8 or 10 people, we are sharing our thoughts, and everyone has different thoughts and different perspectives. We should not be judging anybody on their thoughts. And this is really difficult to achieve. These are kind of noble thoughts, but if we follow that is a real connection. I mean, for example, if Randy says something, I can easily pick Randy because I know I can pick him. And I think that is a kind of connection we can have it. I can pick him right now. I can say whatever thoughts he has provided, maybe half of the thoughts I don't know, I don't relate to, but I'm not judging him on that. So it should not be based on what you give to him or you get from him. It is something where you can land at common interests, join at common interests, and your thoughts. So, and I think this is a proof that I'm able to share with all of you guys that I have some connection with all of you. So I'm able to share. So that's all.
Thank you, Suruchi. We are at 5 o'clock. I'm happy to hang on a little while longer to chat and discuss more things depending on what y'all are interested in. I do want to thank everyone who's joined today. I hope you've enjoyed this and it's offered you some value. If so, I'd love to hear your thoughts even after. Feel free to send me a message and tell me, hey, we should not do any more like this. This was really terrible. It is interesting as we do come back to in-person. I'm very excited about getting back to in-person events because I really like seeing people in person. That's just part of who I am. But I really enjoy this opportunity as well. And I think TN Tech, for example, offers a unique opportunity. We don't have to all be in the same place. There's no huge barrier to entry. And I like that a lot about the virtual events that we've created as a result of this. And I think a lot of people do. And I think that's exciting that it's incredible some of the opportunities that this terrible pandemic has created and the way that it's changed our world. There's infinite discussion around that on all platforms these days, but yeah. I'm hoping to continue this. Go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
I would like to kind of like add to that. Like, I kind of feel like with the pandemic and things going virtual, I think it's given people that might not have the means to get downtown for a meetup, like an opportunity to get in touch with the tech circle that they may have been completely isolated from. So I kind of wonder if like those learnings could be applied when we go back to, mixing it up with in-person meetings, if, kind of moving around a bit and getting in touch with other parts of Cincinnati that, folks may not have access to, it's just, it's pretty tough to convince some people to, drive downtown for tech meetups, I guess is the thing, or go to bars for meetups. That's the other thing I've seen is people have a resistance to that as well. So I would say moving forward, I'd like to see more variety in the types of networking opportunities.
Can I ask a question too? And I'm so sorry, I'm trying to fix the thing. When someone finishes talking, I don't just interrupt them and go over. Sarah, I really appreciate that input. And I would like to jump off of what you said and ask you and anyone else about in-person meetups. I've never done an in-person tech meetup, completely foreign concept to me. And I guess I just wanted to, I feel silly, from the before times, can you tell me what it's like? Can you tell me any of the social cues that I'm probably not familiar with? Because it almost terrifies me. I've never seen any of you in person and it's kind of strange. I don't know. I would love to hear more from your experiences.
I know that from when we did Cincy.js in person, that's a lunchtime meeting at Gaslight, which is near the library downtown. And it's, come in, grab a slice of pizza, find the crew that you came to Gaslight with. It's usually people show up with like a whole crew of coworkers, and you find a table and you just chat with, your team, or you can venture out and meet other people. But I think with Cincy.js, it tended to be more like pods of companies of people. And with Code Craftsmanship, they also used to do catered meals at dinner time, I would say. But that was a bit more of a mixed bag where people were just kind of bumping into, a new developer saying, hi, I really liked your talk so many months ago, and then moving on to another person. So it really varies based off of the meeting you attend and the crew of people. I would say if you're going to an in-person meeting, you can get a kind of a feel for what the meeting's going to be like based off of the meetup list of attendees. And so if you see some regulars there, or, you can kind of get a feel for the list of attendees there.
One of the things that I've been thinking about with software craftsmanship, and you bring this up to the forefront again. So we created a speaker guide, which I thought was super helpful for our speakers. And we've been for some time wanting to create an attendee guide just to, help people know what to expect when they come to the meetup. So that, is something that I'll definitely have to get on here pretty soon. Actually, I think Kat might have done some work on that already now that I think of it. So I'll have to check in on that. But yes, so Sarah, I appreciate that call out about different areas of town. It's so interesting because I, for a long time, didn't attend downtown meetups except on very rare occasions because I worked either in Blue Ash or up in Mason or something like that. And so the idea of like driving downtown, that sounds difficult. That sounds really, really tough and unpleasant at the end of the day, whatever. And lunchtime was just not an impossibility. Like it just wasn't going to happen, right? So, but then when my office moved downtown, at that point it was like, well, no, I'm not going to any meetups that aren't downtown, because I don't want to. I like walking to the meetup, or I could catch the streetcar or whatever, something along those lines. But essentially, I don't have to leave the downtown area. And so that was super interesting to me, how there were essentially two separate ecosystems existing simultaneously in Cincinnati with surprisingly little overlap. That was always kind of shocking to me. Like, I initially got involved in downtown stuff through Hack Cincy, which was the hackathon I helped organize. And all of the organizers were downtown, basically startup people. And, so occasionally I'd go meet them downtown or go to the drink up, but it was kind of a trek. And none of the people I knew from outside of downtown came to those events. But none of the people from the downtown events went to the outside, the out of downtown events either. So I don't have a solution, but a specific solution. I think there's things we can do, but it was super interesting to me that it had that makeup essentially.
It is actually like the Women Who Code model, is where our aim is to move around to different companies to host our in-person events. And then we have also switched some between weeknight meetups and Saturday morning meetups to kind of take into account folks with like kids, especially during a pandemic, who maybe can't do things on a weeknight after work. And probably for the foreseeable future, we're trying to do 2 events per month to keep one virtual because that's been so accessible and easy for people to make it and do that kind of thing. And then adding in a second like casual Saturday morning meetup without an agenda that is just like purely like networking or whatever you want to work on. So we'll see how that goes. It's obviously dependent on who shows up to what, which ones we keep and that kind of thing. But that's been a big part of our planning, is how do we make this accessible for whoever wants to come at least like once every 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, that's
great. That's a great point. You might be in a similar boat with work. A lot of jobs are saying, hey, are we going to go back to the offices or not? And I feel like when I've been kicking it around in my head, I feel like the in-person is where you get the personal interaction that is just a little bit more of a human connection in some ways. And it makes me feel as though the digital online can just stay what it is. And then rather than forcing going back to the in-person being the same as it was, have it be a little bit more no structure or order, just appreciate the in-person for what it is. I think that's what you might have been kind of saying there, Sierra.
Yeah, that's our aim right now, is we're starting to like coffee and codes, and we're rotating around coffee shops. The first one's in Westchester, but we plan to because I know that one's open and has seating mostly, but I plan on finding others throughout the rest of the year. But we also had a lot of success over the pandemic having like discussion based. So every couple of months we would do something like a book club or a couple of talking points to try to replicate networking, because it was just like people would sign on, they'd listen to the talk and they sign off, and I would have no idea who was joining these events. And so we did try some like interactive, here's 4 articles we're going to go through and talk about these, and I thought that was really successful and built our community really well during the pandemic.
That's great. I imagine, so from an organizer's perspective, moving the meeting around sounds incredibly stressful. Like with the need to organize it and find spaces and stuff like that. And, just thinking through
Yeah, we're really lucky that we're backed by like this international organization. And so you get trade-offs and perks for these people who are gonna host us is like to host us, you get a free job posting on the Women Who Code job board for an international group of software developers. And usually that costs like $500 or something to keep it up there for a month. So there are perks that we have. Any money that you spend is a tax write-off. But yes, I'm not looking forward to it. We do have a couple lined up for whenever it's time to move towards that. But for now, I'm pretty content keeping all the technical talks online because and just adding in those unstructured networking hours and see how that goes for the rest of the year and then reevaluate in 2022.
Yeah. We, I think I've mentioned this a couple times in TN Tech, but we're planning to go to 2 month as well with software craftsmanship, one fully virtual and then a hybrid event. So.
I mean, I joined software craftsmanship, even though it's in the downtown, just because they have a big parking lot just next to them. Otherwise, finding parking and coming to downtown is a big problem. That's why I don't. That's probably I missed chance to attend many other software craftsmanship guys. You guys, I believe in let's say program office next to it. It has a huge public parking. It's very easy to find actually.
Thank you.
Finding parking is a big problem while going to downtown.
It's true. It's always stressful for a lot of people. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, I think just Cincinnati is not good with public transportation. I think that's where that's what I remember the most.
Yeah.
Others, I wish everyone could be able to jump on a train, but that's a whole other.
I'm lucky with that. I have a fantastic bus that takes me basically direct from my house to the office in 25 minutes. So
you're on a bus line.
I am.
I lived my whole life. If I wanted a house, it had to be on a bus line. I understand that very clearly. I think I'm going to jump off as well here. It's time for Nigel's walk. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day. And thanks so much for everything that was shared from those who I learned from. See you.
Thank you, Randy. Does anybody else have anything they want to discuss before we sign off? You look sad there for a moment, Sierra.
I also have to listen
I was gonna say
you next week.
Women Who Code Cincinnati has an event tonight. You can just like sit here and keep on going.
That's great. Do you want to drop a link, Sierra?
Yeah.
Is there like a meetup of meetups, Michael?
A meetup of meetups. This is
well, I think so many like technical organizations in Cincinnati that have their own meetups. I wonder if like they have their own like Discord where they can discuss what's working for them and what's not, where you can have like a thing that's like, hey, I learned this during the pandemic. Maybe this could help you.
Don't you love that, Michael?
Sarah. I just recently created a Discord specifically for that purpose. So yeah, Sierra is actually a part of that. Thank you, Sierra. And so if you know any other Cincinnati tech leaders who are looking to share thoughts and ask questions, definitely let me know and I can get them connected in. It's still booting up. I think we've got a little bit of activity there, but we're working on it. It's pretty fresh.
I think you should make a Google Calendar.
I actually, yes. I think that is important. And I actually posted about that in there. I just haven't done it. So do you want to do that, Sierra?
Yeah, I will.
Great. That would be fantastic. I
I
think
I'm part of like every meetup anyway, so I can just do it.
If you check, I think I was like posted. If you look in upcoming events there should be some stuff in there. So thank you for that idea, Sarah. I might have to do that.
I'm a thought leader.
Yes. Always.
Gotta go. Bye.
Bye, bye, Sarah. All right. Thank you all for joining today.
Bye.
It's been a lot of fun. And I hope you have a great night. And I look forward to seeing you next week.
See ya.
Bye. See ya. Bye.
Take care. Bye.